Welcome to the electronic archive of presentations from Performance Incentives, the Growing Impact on American K-12 Education, a national conference hosted at Peabody College of Vanderbilt University in 2008. The conference was sponsored by the National Center on Performance Incentives, a research and development center funded in part by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences. You're watching a video presentation from Dr. Kevin Booker, a researcher at Mathematica Policy Research, on the impact of the Missouri Career Ladder program on district performance.
So I'll be presenting about a different type of program, and this is it's kind of a look back at teacher incentives, how they were 10, 15 years ago. This is looking at the Missouri Career Ladder program, and it's one of the longest running teacher incentive programs in the country. It's been in operation for 20 years, more or less the same setup as it's had since the beginning. And most of the career ladder programs that started in the mid-'80s stopped operation relatively soon thereafter. And this one has continued to be popular, has continued to operate. And so it's interesting to look at this program and see what is it about this program that made it successful where others were not. And so this paper is looking at whether there's any achievement effects of the Career Ladder program, but it's part of a larger study that's looking at, has two other papers, one looking at implementation of the program, and the other looking at effects on teacher mobility and retention. And so the idea is to get a big picture of what's going on with this program and whether it's having any impacts. And the way the program works is teachers are given an opportunity to do extra work in exchange for extra pay. And eligibility for this is based on both seniority and on performance evaluation. Now, this differs from some other performance incentive programs where the districts are actually explicitly forbidden to link this eligibility to student achievement. So they can't include student achievement directly. It only comes through this performance evaluation component. The program is funded jointly by the state and by the participating districts, and the state matches a percentage of the funding. It ranges from 60% for the poorest districts to 40% for the more affluent districts. And the total state payment in 2004-05 was $36.5 million, and over a quarter of all the teachers in the state participated. So this is a very wide-ranging program. And there's 3 stages of teacher awards under the Career Ladder program. The first stage is only teachers with at least 5 years of experience are eligible. And here you can earn up to $1,500 of extra pay in exchange for at least 60 hours of extra work. And similarly, stages 2 and 3 also have seniority requirements, and the extra pay goes up as well. And these extra hours can include both classroom activities as well as professional development. But the guidelines by the State Department of Education specify that only a third of the time can be used on professional development. This figure shows district participation history over time. And you can see that the period of rapid growth in program participation occurred over the first 10 years of the program. So there were 66 districts participating in the first year. And this expanded until by '97 you had 286 districts participating. After this point, participation leveled off, and there was only 66 districts that actually changed participation status in that last 10-year period. Well, that's the period that we're going to be looking at in the test score analysis. And so as you can see, it's going to limit what we can do as far as looking at districts shifting in and out of career ladder status. So which districts actually participate in the Career Ladder program? You can see that participating districts are on average quite a bit smaller than non-participating districts. They tend to be slightly more, or have a slightly higher percentage free reduced lunch and a slightly lower percentage African American, and they're much less likely to be urban districts. It's mainly the poorer and the more rural districts that are participating in the program. And you can see that by the median household income being much lower for these participating districts. And you see a similar picture if you look at the percent poor or the percent with no college education. So just based on observable characteristics, there is a pretty big difference between the districts that are choosing to participate. Now, it's not clear exactly how strong the performance incentive aspect of the program is. And districts are given quite a bit of latitude over how they want to design their performance evaluation component. And so in some districts, it may be that that the performance evaluation component really has no teeth, and it's primarily seniority that's determining whether teachers are eligible. In other districts, this may actually be, the performance evaluation may be a key component in determining which teachers are eligible. And this is something that we're looking at in the implementation study. And we are finding in teacher focus groups that there appears to be quite a big variation among districts, that in some districts, the performance evaluations actually do have some teeth. In other districts, they're not really binding, and it's mainly just a seniority reward. And of course, this has implications as to what you would expect the results or the effects of the program to be. So our research question is, what is the effect of district career ladder participation on student achievement? And there hasn't been much rigorous evidence looking at this type of career ladder program. One of the main reasons is because many of the programs quit operation before people were able to take a look at them. One study, Dowling et al. In 2007, looked at Arizona's career ladder program, and they looked at 2 years of achievement data and found that there was a positive effect on student achievement there. And they were comparing participating districts to a matched sample of non-participating districts. Now, one difference between the two programs is in Arizona, they were allowed to use student achievement as one of the factors for determining which teachers were eligible, whereas in Missouri, that's not allowed under the program rules. So the data we're going to be using is district test score data starting in 1997-98. And Missouri tested math in grades 4, 8, and 10, and reading in grades 3, 7, and 11. And so this creates a problem if you're thinking about building the kind of typical longitudinal student level model that we might look at to analyze this type of program, because students are only going to be observed once every 4 years, or at best once every 2 years in a particular subject. And so if you were going to do a differences in differences type approach, it would be difficult to establish what the prior achievement trajectory of the students is before they enter. And so we're actually using district average math and reading scores for this analysis. Now, there are analytical challenges that make it difficult to make rigorous causal inferences about the program. And the biggest, of course, is that districts self-select whether to participate or not. And so because of this self-selection, there's no way to ensure that the districts are equivalent not only on observable characteristics, but also on unobservable characteristics that might confound the effects. And because only 66 districts shift their participation status during the time period, we don't have a large sample of districts for which we can look at their achievement levels both before they participated and while they're participating in the program. And another concern is we do look at the differences in differences analysis for those 66 districts. One additional concern there is that those districts may not be representative of the full set of participating districts because they decided to enter the program relatively late in its history. So our basic analytic specification is just looking at district average test scores as a function of career ladder participation, other district demographic characteristics, an estimated propensity score, which is the propensity or the probability that the district participated in 1995, so before the period of analysis. And our results, we find a positive overall effect in math, but it's quite a small effect. Now, this is in average district test score units. And so, I think more often we're used to seeing effect sizes in student test score units. So if you compare the standard deviation of the district average scores to the student test score distribution, the standard deviation of the student test score distribution is about 3 times bigger. So if you're going to think of it in terms of student level effect size units, just divide these coefficients by 3. And so you get an effect for all grades of about 0.02 and in math, and for grades 3 and 4, where we see the biggest effect, you'd get an effect of about 0.04 for math and 0.03 for reading. So these are quite substantively small effects. And we see the biggest effects for elementary grades, but then they diminish for middle school and high school grades. And again, I should point out that although we do attempt to control for all the observable district characteristics, there is still self-selection here, and so these results could be biased by some sort of compounding factor that's not included in our data. We also group districts by propensity score and do separate analyses within these different groupings. So trying to compare districts with participating districts with non-participating districts that are similar on their observable characteristics. And we see that the results are similar in magnitude for math, but no longer statistically significant. For reading, we get this interesting result where the districts that were most likely to be participating in 1995, when you just do the analysis there, you get a big effect for reading. Now, these are mainly the rural, low-income districts. And so most of these districts are participating in the program. The ones that choose not to participate may be different, quite different unobservably somehow. And so we're not sure exactly what to make of that effect. We also do an analysis controlling for the cohort prior average test score. So we don't have the student level data, but we're looking at, for example, for 10th graders in 2005, we link back to the 8th grade 2003 score and control for that. Now, because we don't have prior test scores for some of the grades and for some of the years, we actually lose quite a bit of the sample. We lose over half the observations. We lose the elementary school grades. And so this first line is running the analysis with the benchmark specification, but on this restricted sample. And you can see that just going to the restricted sample reduces the coefficient somewhat. And then including the prior average test score as a control variable basically leaves the estimates the same, insignificant. And then if you actually put the difference on the left-hand side, they go strictly to 0. Now, like I said, for the 66 districts that changed their participation status during this period, we can do a within district variation only. So this first line is only looking at comparing their achievement before they participated to after they participate, or for the districts that stopped participating, comparing after they participated to before. And you can see that there we're getting very little effect. What little effects we do find are based on cross-sectional variation in districts. They're not based on districts that change their participation status during this time period. So our conclusions is that across a range of specifications, we find effects that range from small positive effects to no effect in both subjects. And we would conclude that even though we can't get an unbiased estimate here, it seems likely that if there is a positive effect, it's likely to be quite small. And in order to make more causal inferences here, we need a more rigorous approach. We need some availability of random assignment or some other program. Now, an additional limitation is that, as I said, in the implementation analysis we're doing, we're finding that in some districts, this is really just extra pay for seniority, whereas in other districts, it actually is the teacher evaluations that are determining which teachers are eligible. And so we might think that these implementation differences would lead to different effects. And so one possibility would be to do a different analysis controlling for these differences in implementation. And we're also looking forward to seeing the effects of the program on teacher retention and mobility. And that's the third component of the analysis. So, thank you.
A working paper and the PowerPoint slides used in this presentation are available on the National Center on Performance Incentive website.